of Professional Storm Responders presents the 1974 Outbreak.
Today we're going to be talking about the 1974 Super Outbreak, which had 7 F5 tornadoes, 2 of which was right here in southwest Ohio.
First, we will look at the Xenia tornado. The tornado formed near Bellbrook, Ohio, southwest of Xenia, at about 4:30 p.m. It began as a moderate-sized tornado, then intensified while moving northeast at about 50 miles per hour. The tornado exhibited a multi-vortex structure and became very large as it approached town. The storm was visible on radar because of raindrops wrapping around the circulation. The massive tornado slammed into the western part of Xenia, completely flattening the Windsor Park and Arrowhead subdivisions at F5 intensity, and sweeping away entire rows of brick homes with little debris left behind in some areas. Extensive windrowing of debris occurred in nearby fields. When the storm reached central Xenia at 4:40 p.m., apartment buildings, homes, businesses, churches, and schools, including Xenia High School, were destroyed. Students in the school practicing for a play took cover in the main hallway just seconds before a tornado dropped a school bus onto the stage where they had been practicing. Several railroad cars were lifted and blown over as the tornado passed over a moving Penn Central freight train in the center of town.
The tornado moved through the length of downtown business district, passing west of the courthouse. Numerous businesses in downtown Xenia were heavily damaged or destroyed, and several people were killed at the A&W Ruger stand as the building was flattened. At the time, this was the state's highest tornadic death toll for a single building since 1953. A total of 32 people lost their lives in the twister, and about 1,150 were injured in Xenia, several of whom took proper shelter. About 1,400 buildings, roughly half of the town, were heavily damaged or destroyed. Damage total would be $586 million in 2022. Upon exiting Xenia, the tornado passed through Wilberforce, heavily damaging several campus and residential buildings of the Wilberforce University. Central State University also sustained considerable damage. Afterwards, the tornado weakened before dissipating in Clark County near South Vienna. Traveling a little over 30 miles, its maximum width was a half a mile in Xenia.
The next storm we'll be talking about is the F5 tornado that hit Sailor Park. Sailor Park is located along the Ohio River and is a suburb of Cincinnati.
The Sailor Park tornado was among a series of tornadoes that earlier struck portions of southern Indiana, from north of Brandenburg, Kentucky, into southwest Ohio. This tornado was witnessed on television by thousands of people as WCPO aired the tornado live during special news coverage of the tornadoes. It was also noted for the rarity in that its path was in parts of 3 states. It began shortly after 5:30 p.m. in southeastern Indiana in Ohio County, north of Rising Sun, near the Ohio River. It then traveled through Boone County, Kentucky, producing F4 damage in the Taylorsport area before crossing the Ohio River a second time back into Ohio. Here, the tornado reached F5 intensity as it slammed into Sailor Park. The first area of town hit was the Moorhead Marina, where numerous boats were thrown and destroyed. A large floating restaurant barge at this location was lifted, ripped from its mooring, and flipped by the tornado. It was later recovered several miles downstream. A nearby house was also lifted from its foundation and thrown into the river as well. At a further inland area of Sailor Park, the tornado maintained F5 intensity as numerous homes were swept away at a hilly area near the lake with only bare slabs remaining. The tornado weakened somewhat as it continued northeastward, passing through multiple Cincinnati neighborhoods and destroying numerous homes. Some of the worst affected areas were Bridgetown, Mack, Dent, and Delhi. Damage in Delhi was rated as high as an F4. The tornado took 3 lives and injured 210, with 190 of the injuries in Hamilton County alone. This tornado was considered the most photographed tornado of the outbreak. This tornado dissipated west of White Oak, but the same thunderstorm activity was responsible for two other tornado touchdowns in Lebanon and Mason areas. The Mason tornado, which started in northern Cincinnati subdivisions of Arlington Heights and Elmwood Place, was rated an F4 and took 2 lives, while the Warren County tornado was rated an F2 and injured 10.
The greatest thing to take away from the 1974 outbreak is the fact that warnings were being given for towns after tornadoes had already swept through them. And with this, the National Weather Service put a greater emphasis on the Skywarn program to provide boots on the ground truth for weather. And especially in 1974, it was solely Skywarn amateur radio. The 1974 outbreak would have 148 confirmed tornadoes, with 7 being F5 intensity. The duration of the outbreak lasted greater than 18 hours and would claim 319 lives, also injuring 5,484. And in today's monetary value, the damage would cost $4,580,000,000. Dr. Theodore Fujita and President Nixon would both visit Xenia in the days that followed. Fujita would go on to say that this was the most damaging tornado throughout the entire outbreak, while President Nixon would say this was the worst disaster he had seen during his tenure as president. Dr. Fujita and a team of colleagues undertook a 10-month study of the 1974 Super Outbreak, along with discovering much about tornadoes which was not known before, such as the downburst and the microburst, and assessing damage to surrounding structures. The Xenia tornado was determined to be the worst of the 148 storms. Fujita initially assigned a preliminary rating of F6 intensity, +1 on the scale, before deeming F6 ratings inconceivable.